What's going on, gamers? I got an interesting topic to talk about here. News is pretty dry, so we got to get a bit creative here. Push Square just shared a headline, which is not saying much on the site, that it's all a bit depressing after seeing the PS5 price hikes that only 13% think PS5 is worth its new price. I don't see why a single percentage would, but then you have to have people that also want to justify things. But something else I want to bring up too is that seeing this too shows that it's a bit depressing knowing that the Steam machine is going to be weaker than this, but it's going to be more and closer to the PS5 Pro price, which is kind of crazy. The 1 terabyte might be just around $900 to $1,000, which is nuts considering that you're still getting the same specs closer to a PS5 in 2026, but you're just getting more hard drive space. And definitely on PC, that 512 is not enough. I always thought that when they announced the Steam machine, it should be 1 terabyte model and a 2 terabyte model. And I want you guys to let me know what you think about that as well, because I think that's the next thing that people are probably going to be complaining about. Though, like the last video, we were saying there's going to be some people to try to justify that. But I don't care what you tell me. I don't want to pay for PS5 specs at $700, $900 for a 2 terabyte when the Pro has a 2 terabyte itself. And we were saying, man, at 750, that's a sweet spot, right? And it has an extra 2 gigabytes of RAM. And it can do RDNA 4 feed. So it's like, regardless of its price hike or not, its Steam machine was still in the same ballpark in that time that we were talking about it, right? So these are the two topics where it's like, yeah, there is a depression about, I think that as well too, with the PS5 price hike, as well as them dropping the PSSR2 update and how much flair that got. And it was taking over all the media feeds in the gaming industry. And then when that came in, it kind of like, it's like, you put a dent in it in a way. And it should have been, they should have held out. Honestly, Tristan down here says, for many people, the PS5 is never going to be worth no matter what price it has. These polls do not reflect reality. It is better to wait for actual market results. I mean, here's the thing. Obviously, it is going to be very interesting to see how Sony sales end up turning out after this price hike in April. Wow, what is April NPDs going to look like? What is April Japan results? Well, it's already, even when they try to drop it down, it's just going to be more rough in Japan. Europe, definitely Europe. You know what I mean? Like, how is that going to be? And will the end of March give them a spike off because everybody's rushing in to buy it, right? So I get what he's saying, but at the same time, it's common sense and logic to realize that the price hike is just not good in general. And it's not about whether you think it's worth it or not. It's just understanding that by a basic concept is after running into your 6th year, it should not be going up like that. But that's the whole market in general. That's why I said that I think that Valve is put in a ridiculous position. And then they came out and told you even last year, we're not subsidizing. And that's the problem. You saw what happened with the Steam Deck, right? They discontinued it. Remember, they did the original model and then they did the other one, kind of like because they're getting ready for the Steam machine, and that it's not selling that much more. So it's pointless to jack that price up even more if you're being forced to do that. Why would they do that? Everybody is. It just depends on how much more you want to jack that price up. So it's like, yeah, man, it all sucks. This guy says Sony PlayStation right now is the most hated gaming company. I don't know about that. I think what Microsoft has going on is the most ridiculous. And it just really depends. You know what I mean? I feel like the most hated is the less supported. PlayStation still has a ton of love. That's why it has a huge base. But it could be a bigger disappointment because you have a bigger base. And also other people can join in on there because there's a lot of people on Xbox that want to self-farm against PlayStation or, go against PlayStation. Same thing with people on PC and Steam who don't like the way Sony did things. Though I think Steam should give them some more leeway because they share a lot of their games with you. $500 of November 20th, $628 of February 26th. Inflation adjusted figures reveal that both Series X and PS5 are $22 more than their launch MSRP. Is this guy serious? No, dude. Things are supposed to go down over time. I don't want to hear that inflation stuff. It's just, now I'm not saying that third parties outside of the first party political realm are not getting affected by that. Of course they are. But usually you would think after like at least 5 or 6 years, you don't go up that much more compared to the base. Like if you try to pull stuff up in the 90s and say the same thing, I'm like, no, man, $20 is $20. It's just that it depends if they want to make up that artificial manipulation and put that upon the consumer. Because they tell the person that is MSRPing it or the person that's manufacturing it that, sorry, inflation this, and they're like, oh, no, I'm not going to subsidize. But that's going to hit the consumer. So like regardless, it's consumer screwing over, like no matter how you look at it. Soul Hunter says it's worth the price. Absolutely. What idiots are voting there? Base PS5 is running Crimson Desert in performance mode and looks great. That's because they made a good game with a good engine. What do you mean? No, the base PS5 should be $399. No. $449. You see what I mean? $399 digital. Like, he says, I bought mine last week, save $100, feels good. LOL, this ain't gonna stop people from buying the console. That's the thing. Like I said, just like if Apple, like if you look at Apple prices back then and you see the prices now, you think that's gonna stop people from buying iPhones? Man, if you got a loyal base, they're loyal. But it's definitely going to affect them a bit for the rest of the generation. The thing is that, like I told people before, 85% of the PlayStation sales are already over with. They already almost got their 100 million. That was always the goal to begin with. Everything else after that is just extra. But that does not mean that the price hike isn't depressing and that this gives you an idea of what the hell's going to be going on with the Steam machine. The Steam machine is in trouble to me in a sense of, if you don't have Half-Life 3, well, that's going to be rough. Not because Valve failed, but because this market sucks and it can't be sold at $600 or $550, which I believe the Steam machine should be launching at, right? But no, that's not the problem here, guys. The problem here is your hand is being forced, and either you subsidize or you don't subsidize. And then you look back on where is the biggest feed for this happening. We all know that goes back to AI, that goes back to chip manufacturers and owners and stuff like that. So it's not necessarily pointing a finger so much at Sony or even Nintendo, that they're not jacking the price up. Microsoft plays a part in that, Nvidia massively as well, and so does South Korea when it comes to RAM. Micron was in there too, but we see how much they were backing out. But it's just realizing who's the one that's in control, who's carteling this, who's manipulating this like this, so that everybody gets affected. Because when you hit the PC market, you hit parts that people build to use things, even APU chips, right? So it's like, no, there's no really escaping this. Everybody gets hit. It just depends on how you want to reply with it to your base. Do you want to subsidize? I think when it comes to Sony, they could easily subsidize on consoles, and they've been doing that for the longest because you make so much money on PlayStation Plus, software, microtransactions, third-party revenue, royalty, first-party, all that you shouldn't have jacked it up as much. If we want to talk about why this is depressing, it's like, oh, no, you didn't really need to do that. But they know they already won. They ain't got no competition either from Xbox. But that's not really the reason, though. I mean, that could be a small portion like, oh, I'm going to make my console more expensive than yours. Are you going to make yours match mine? Because I think my console's worth more than yours. I got exclusives. I'm not giving my games to you, but you're going to give all your games to me. We are working together, though, because you need me to sell your games, and I'll just get more games from my players. So that I can have all your games, and you get none of mine or whatever. You know what I mean? So start pulling their stuff away from Steam, and then Steam Machine is getting relaunched, but it's losing access now to PlayStation exclusives. And it may be forced to be $800 for the 512 gigabyte model. And that's the thing where I'm like, oh my Lord, if this really happens, I don't know what to say. Because I was thinking more like the 2 terabyte doing that. But I don't know if you guys remember when Linux Tech called Valve, he was on the phone. He told them that, you know, yeah, $600, right? I mean, I think that'd be a sweet point. And everybody was just quiet, right? They didn't say anything. And he just realized this. Okay, he said, you know what? It's going to be $700 in. If it's not $700, I'm going to eat the Portal cake. He was letting you know that I was on the phone with them. And I tried the $600 even before all this chaos came in at the beginning of the year and at the end. And Valve had to delay some stuff, right? And they were probably thinking $700. But imagine now, it may be $800 for the Steam Machine 512 and like $9 something for the 2 terabyte or $1,000. Yeah, that's something to think about because that's pretty crazy. So I want you guys to let me know what you think about this. Are you depressed about things right now too? I think a lot of people probably are because this market sucks. Even if you got your own stuff, you still have to see like how things are just being affected. Valve, I mean, they're getting ready to launch something at the beginning. Nintendo's still at their beginning in a way. So at least Sony's 6 years in with Microsoft, but they've kind of won already. So that's the difference. All right, y'all, peace out. Keep it real.